So it is 7:03, and we will start the March 19th meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. First order of business is to review the agenda for additions, removals, adjustments. I did notice late in the game that my times are like whacked. I don't think we need to take an hour and 5 minutes for public comment, but I think given this agenda, we probably could shoot for 8 o'clock here. Shannon has made a comment that item C underneath 4, update for the hazard mitigation plan steering committee that have not met, so we will strike that from the agenda. We have a minute taker.
No, she'll do it from the video.
Okay. Is there any other comments or things to talk about as far as the agenda is concerned? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to public comment. Any public comment?
Jimmy.
Hearing none, we'll move on to continuing business. So we had started talking about what to do for next steps for our work, and the list that was captured was keeping in mind the implementation action plans in the town plan. We talked about mobility access to the downtown stores, considering accessibility to be a draw, walking paths along the New Haven River, BTN network, pros and cons, increasing housing opportunities. Is housing size for Bristol needs, or is it providing relief for the area or the region? Ensuring density is not detrimental, how to integrate commercial and light industrial, incentivize small houses, potential use of an intern, addressing a viable economy, permit notification process, review residential density in RA1, RA2, and RA5 zoning districts and Airbnbs. And then we left it that each person would go away and come up with up to 3 topics that they, out of that list or others for that matter, that they feel are as important for us to work on going forward. Oh, and by the way, John is not, he's got some personal issues going on, so he won't be here tonight. And I think Fred has something going on tonight too. So
Bill just joined you.
just backing up a little bit to acknowledge that. And then we have Bill in here. So I think I started a worksheet that I thought we could list out and combine what we're thinking about and kind of organize it and then work on prioritizing, if that makes sense to everybody.
You want to share it from your machine?
Yeah.
And you should be able to share screen.
You see it? Let me see if I can. Okay.
Nice.
So again, we've got partial look at people online. So if you have something not being acknowledged, just ask for acknowledgement. I started filling this sheet out a little bit with stuff that Fred had brought up, just because Fred did email his thoughts, and so just to get a placeholder for Fred I did put his comments, he had two items that he was looking to, thought that were worthy of topics to work on. I also put a column on the sheet on how we are going to implement. Obviously, whether it would be a zoning thing or if it'd be more big picture and something that we'd want to work on integrating in the town plan, even if it's a little ways away, or if it's a procedural thing. So I've laid, that's why I took advantage of Fred's comments to lay out the sheet. So does anybody want to take a stab at what they would like to, what their three are?
Oh, I have one down.
Okay.
Too.
Sure.
One time to Fred's here in a minute. So, looking at sort of the task where you've done the housing study, I feel like most everything when we looked at that list of things that sort of had to be done in the next 3 to 5 years, with the housing study would give us a stronger database to make decisions by. And I didn't know what we had here and, you know, if there's any kind of database here that keeps any of that. Or if we could work off, say, the voter logs and, or the tax. bill.
Yeah, so the ground list would be your
The
best
rest
bet.
Would be the best bet. So I thought that would be a place to start to get that information to gather it. And then this goes back to, we talked about the intern and the fact that this would probably be time consuming and labor intensive. That would be helpful. And I didn't know if the other things we could look at was maybe school enrollment. To look to see, you know, that would tell us, you know, if John and Jane Smith live at this house and they have little Timmy Smith in 3rd grade, he probably lives in the same house, so you sort of at least have an idea of actually who's living there. That was just an idea. And that was sort of where I started. My second thing was ties into what Fred had going on up there, which is to review the other zones. Like we did with the village and the high density areas. See that we probably need to actually go out and inspect some of these areas that are sort of open right now that could be built on, to see why they're not built there, whether it's ownership or whether it's landscape. So that kind of tied in with what Fred had to say.
Does what Fred have up here cover what you're thinking about, or should we?
It's similar. That was, you know, he was a little more specific than I was.
Okay. So how would, so the housing study would support zoning, I would say. As far as zoning, is that?
Yep.
And then the other one would be probably the same. Same with Rob, do you have any?
Do you have a third?
Oh,
I have a third yet.
Oh, you do? I'm
Yep,
sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you said you were done.
Nope. Third one kind of tied in with the first two, which I thought could be, is review the municipal, road standards. That while we're making these maps and writing this all out, that we probably could incorporate that into both those 2 steps above the housing study and the review of the other zones. Zoning. And I really didn't have other things I put down, was some info could be gathered via Google Earth. And those pictures are updated relatively frequently, so we might get an idea where private roads have expanded and become more of a public road. More things that have been added since last time we've gone up any maps, which was 2012.
So the road standards would be also mapping
Yep.
roads.
Those were my 3 ideas.
Yeah.
A few things that I looked at that I thought.
So would that be the select board does something with the road standards now, don't they, or?
Yeah, I
do
mean, they set the road standards, but there's nothing that says that you couldn't provide them with recommendations, especially with roads that you think that need to be upgraded to promote your vision of growth or not.
Okay.
Just looking through, I'm a little unprepared, but, I was gravitating towards the housing study, especially the piece about, the short-term rentals. And if that's having any impact, because that's something that is, if it does become a problem, we'll quickly be chasing it too late. And then there's already a problem pre-existing of grandfathered in uses and existing non-conformance, so that's something that we should get ahead of if there is any concern about it being a problem in the future. That and also the notes about the designations related to future planning and use and grants of, excuse me, be it downtown, designated downtown or village center, or any of the others out there that may apply or may not apply to us, and making sure that those are current and best used, because I know that some of that stuff has funding implications and what you can get for grants and state aid, that sort of stuff.
Can you say that again?
The designations of within the village, be it downtown or village center or others. Related to future planning.
That's to fit in with state.
Yeah,
State designations.
yeah,
Is that a? Those would be both, would we be acting through those through zoning? You think? How would-
I don't think it's just
No,
zoning.
no, the
It is
select board
like-
actually would be the one who would. Again, it would be your recommendation to the select board to pursue these based on your goals and vision. But the select board is the one that would have to pursue the actual designations.
Like, I know some towns, through what I've come across, day-to-day stuff, have a designated growth center, and they get funds from the state, I think, to look at how to build that out or promote development within there, or various things like that. So I don't know if there's anything like that that would be helpful to Bristol
Mhm.
with the limited municipal services that are available.
Okay, well, that takes care of the room. Slim, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, hi. I got a piggyback on the short-term rental thing. That was number one on mine, and that goes along also with the housing study. I thought a housing study to find out how many domiciles, let's say, are what even long-term rentals, short-term rentals, both, as those uses clearly take away a chance for somebody owning a home. And I don't know what we could incentivize this somehow, if it was being within our power, I don't know. But I did recently come across a statistic that actually in America, there's more domiciles per capita than there ever has been. So the problem is that, like myself, landlords own these buildings and then make money off their money, and people don't get a chance to own these properties. And I think that's a problem that I don't know if we can deal with. So that's in my mind. Looking in the long term to truly affordable housing, the ADUs, 900 square feet is not that small of a house. So I'm interested in incentivizing even much smaller homes for a good swath of people, which are young or old or maybe divorced and traveling nurses, and it goes on, because we've seen how it's difficult for Bristol to actually find workers. And, workers in some of these stores and such don't make all that much money. So I think a much more affordable housing would be great. Also, it's been talked about, I think both the communication notifications when somebody's doing a project could be a lot clearer to the neighbors, or a bigger sign out front. I don't believe that small P works at all. And maybe talk about sanctions as well on people. It just, how do we enforce our rules best? Those are the ones I was thinking about. Thanks.
Okay. So affordable housing, that's sort of a zoning thing, I think. And then the enforcement, the sign thing
Is
is,
it the town plan too, right? All the housing stuff would tie into the plan as well.
yeah. And then the enforcement, is that procedure, or that's not necessarily zoning review, is it?
Yeah, it's zoning.
Is it zoning?
Yeah, there's a section in zoning.
Okay. Miss Melissa,
Yep. I'm with Slim on the affordable housing, and possibly a way to facilitate or encourage a property owner allowing like a small home community. What you had on the list there, 400 to 600 square feet, it could be a little bigger than that, but I definitely think that is, if it was done right, it would certainly be a fitting here in Bristol, I think. The other thing is, would we address the accessibility to, if we could ever become in compliance with the ADA, or would that be just our suggestion to select board like those other? Is that the select board thing?
I don't, we, I don't, I'm not sure how we would address
Yeah.
it. We've had, in the town plan, we talk about accessibility, but
Right. Well, I didn't know if it has ever been done, any kind of whatever you would call it, a survey or a something to see if it's plausible, or what would be involved to do that, to have accessibility to the, like, all the shops. And the bank, well, the bank, I guess, has it, but most of the places are not in compliance with that. So would the select board address that then?
No, the ADA compliance falls solely on the state of Vermont. It's construction.
Okay.
Department of Division of Fire and Safety, actually, I think is who does the enforcement on ADA compliance. So there's certain rules, depending on what modifications you're doing to a building, whether you have to bring it to ADA compliance and what levels. And again, those fall back at the state level.
So is that, if we wanted to do that, we'd have to have somebody from the state come in and take a look, or?
No, I mean, you could definitely do a study around where the deficiencies are, and then maybe try to figure out, are there funding mechanisms out there? The funding side of it would fall back on the select board, but try to find out the information of, is it how many buildings are we truly talking about?
Or are we talking about buildings or just the town infrastructure that we can affect with the walks and crosswalks and that in town facilities?
Yeah.
Opposed
Well,
to
I'm talking about
individual
accessibility
right.
to all the buildings downtown. Now, we have it at Holly Hall because we have the elevator there, but there's most of the shops on North Street until you get to the yarn shop don't comply.
I think there might also be opportunities when it is time to do things like work on the sidewalks, right? To look at, if we're funding that anyhow, can we consider ADA compliance? Is there an opportunity to do something?
Yeah.
For that matter, like, is that something that grant funding can help us to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
So
think we
that's-
know those questions, but determining what we would need to do to create compliance would maybe be a first step.
Yeah, that would be make the list of stuff, that I would like to see, just to make a start to see what we can do. And the third thing that I had, or I thought of, was what can we do to give people incentive, either landowners or the homeowners, I guess would be landowners, to basically landscaping, to use the natural, you know, like to build to landscape in a way so that the water that's needed can come from rain. I don't know if you can gather rainwater for gardening here, but just to keep it more so that people aren't, have these great big lawns and they're spending all this money watering it and all the water to water it. And I didn't know if that's something that we might look at to be able to give some incentive and for people to grow other plants and grow, natural plants and trees and things. So it's just not all these big green lawns.
Again, I
You know.
think our means of being able to affect influence change is through the town plan and
Right.
through zoning, more specifically, to some lesser degree, recommendations to the select board, but I don't, I'm not sure how you would, we as a planning commission would affect that.
Yeah.
And unless you have some way that you think that it should be implemented.
That's the thing. I don't know. I just wanted, is that something we could look into and see if that's possible, as more, like, if people sell their land or whatever and the more homes are built out, that, it's just not stripped down. I mean, I don't know what's going on with all the tree cutting on 116.
So let's get that out in the open right now, Melissa.
Yeah.
That was storm damage.
Uh-huh.
A. Johnson had to go. They lost almost 80% of the trees that were in that grove.
Oh, wow.
They cut them
Yeah.
down. They were white pines that were way aged. They're clearing it, decimating, and then replanting spruce, which are a better tree for that environment. So
That's a little-
Okay.
We're getting a little bit off.
So yeah, it looks
No, I'm
terrible
sorry,
right
I
now,
just-
but
I just didn't know what was happening because it just happened to be when I drove through there. Probably it was just looked like a bomb went off, which almost did, I guess, with the storm.
Yeah. But Melissa, I think realistically speaking, you raise a good point. But I think the only way that we could ever do anything about that would be to revisit our zoning regs, right? And to say, if you are altering your property in a significant way, or you have land and you're going to develop it that didn't have anything on it, then we're going to ask you to meet certain additional standards that have to do with how you are landscaping that, because we care about water as a resource collectively in the community. But I don't think we can write it in because it's nice. I think it would have to be using the available means that we have to address that. If we feel it's important, it would have to be a zoning regulation. And that, okay, if your property that you're developing, because it's, like a new single family home on this acre lot, and part of, what you need to do, given where it is to come in and present how you plan to re-landscape or maintain as much as possible to prevent runoff, conserve water, etc. Because we've determined in our town plan that water as a resource needs to be managed very, very carefully because we don't have enough.
And to avoid erosion and unnecessary erosion and just, a whole host of things. I mean, I personally would think we could look at that and just see see maybe what other small towns have done and the like.
Anything else?
Nope, I did 3, so
We did, okay, one must have, so the ones I've got for you are the downtown accessibility and in landscaping, low impact landscaping.
yeah.
What's the third
That's-
one?
The small homes, like possibly
Okay.
having small home communities.
Right, same
Small,
one
yeah.
that's unidentified,
Yeah.
okay,
All right. Thank you.
okay. Let's see who's next, Bill.
Thank you, Kevin. And also Melissa, the blowdown on 116 was exactly as was explained, that we had the tremendous damage of that plantation forest. And it was just like a pile of matchsticks pretty much after the wind came through. And it was best to keep the wood from rotting, because pine is very vulnerable to when temperature gets warmer, and it was all pine. So we harvested it, and now we're trying to make it look better by taking out the old stumps. And we'll plant some spruce there. So we're doing
Sounds good.
the best we can with the tough situation. Thank
Yeah,
you
so
for,
I thought it might have been because I saw the other damage around it, and
yeah,
I figured it must have got hit pretty hard.
yeah. It must have been just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
But thank you for your patience. Kevin, it seems to me that near or at the top of my list would be ways to build our tax base, principally through enterprise, so that we have more tax revenue without raising our tax rates. That would be number one for me. Secondly, I do think we should explore ways we can increase opportunities for home ownership. And of course, there's many ways that could be done, but we should think about that. And then,
So would that fall into the category that's already been discussed about this affordable housing and incentivizing housing, or is it a little bit different?
no, it would fall under that heading, although my sometimes affordable housing emphasizes rentals as or both. My emphasis is on ownership.
Okay,
And for a third one, just exploring the ways we can make our school system work more efficiently, whether that's by combining schools. That wouldn't be anything you'd know anything about, would it, Kevin? But combining schools or combining grades. Somehow we got to get our cost of education closer to the other states, especially when we're running deficits of this size in Montpelier and Washington, D.C. We won't leave them out of it. We got to use the resources we have more efficiently and more effectively.
okay. So that one, what would be the implementation? How would we implement that?
Can we start assigning tasks to the school board?
That's what I was just gonna say, that's a school board task.
That's not, I
Well,
can't
well.
talk about.
We'll, we'll get our torches and pitchforks and march down to the school board and then on to Montpelier and then on to Washington DC. How about that for an implementation plan?
I'm biting my tongue and I'll continue to do so.
Only for a little while longer, Kevin, then you can say whatever you want. Well, I don't know how we'd implement that, but it'd be worth thinking about. Maybe there's something we could do to foster and nurture and encourage perhaps more families. I don't have any immediate ideas as to the student population or family population, but that's part of it. And then the planning of the school facilities is another, and I recognize that's not our immediate jurisdiction, but then if you think about it, very little is. We're just coming up with ideas and guidelines and guardrails, and maybe it could be helpful to the school boards as they make their decisions.
So the previous two, number one and number two of yours would be a zoning activity or zoning review, I think. Is that?
Very,
So,
that seems sensible.
or maybe some of that might even be town plan.
Yeah, you're.
So Anna, you may or may not have missed out on what our task was, but do you have some thoughts?
I did my homework, Kevin.
Oh,
Thank you.
good.
Yay.
Yay. So I think that many of the things that people have already mentioned do resonate with me. I think that ultimately, if we're going to try to create, hang on one second, then I'm in a meeting. You got to go, buddy. All right. I'm sorry. Night, night. Good night. Sorry. Well, that'll
All
tell you,
good.
right?
All been there.
Yeah.
The
So
2020
but I think,
flashback there.
hey. He likes to say anytime he sees a camera, he's like, I'm gonna come say goodnight. But I think that if we're trying to think about increasing housing opportunities, and I do think that there is this question, do we have enough housing to meet Bristol's needs, or are we meeting the needs of a larger community? I do think we are. I think Bristol is attractive to people because it's much more of a town center than any of the other towns in the 5-town area. You can walk to things, right? It's appealing to young families and to retirees and everybody in between because of that. So in my mind, I think that trying to think creatively about, how do we create housing opportunities? How do we at the same time keep housing affordable, right? And I think the key to that is incentivizing small homes. I think one of the big distinctions that I think about a lot is that often, and I think we all see this, and I say this with zero judgment, it's just a reality that, is that I have some land, I had it in the village, I sold it, I subdivided it, and the development plan becomes, however many septic systems there are lots, and then the lots, the solution that's affordable right now that seems simple and doable to people is, I'm going to have a mobile home come in, put down, and it's great for me right now. I've retired here, or I'm living with my family. I think one of the problems with our mobile homes is that they depreciate much more quickly in value. They don't bring in the tax revenue that an actual home on a foundation does. But I think it's really hard for people to think about building something. It's much more expensive. I think so anything that we can do to use whatever resources we have, I think including the possible use of an intern, but looking at, can we find creative thinking, sources of funding, create public resources to make it so that if someone does have some land where they could do some housing, to do that creatively and more affordably and create homes on foundations that are small, therefore maybe a little more affordable to build, to own, right? Or to rent, that then are attracting people to live in the village who are saying, well, it might be a little smaller. I might not have a garage, I might not have my land, but I can afford to pay for this and I can live here. We get more kids in our school system, right? Tax revenue. So I think those are the three. I can repeat if you want, Kevin, right? But it's
Yeah, so
increasing,
so
yeah.
break them down into three here, because I only got.
So
one.
increasing housing opportunities, right?
Yeah, okay.
And incentivizing the small homes, right? And then
Okay.
I think maybe the way I would put about it is maybe that's the potential use of an intern, in the sense that I would like to be able to research opportunities to help people to actually create a home that they are either going to build and sell, or for themselves, or they're going to rent out, that is small, that is economizing where possible, right? And creating a housing stock that's going to continue to be worth money 10, 15, 20 years from now, right? And to not go to the immediate sort of, okay, the quickest, fastest, most inexpensive way to develop this land, right, is the smallest lot size, individual septic, mobile home. I'm not saying that there's something bad about that, but long term, that doesn't add enough money to our property tax rolls. And eventually, unless you're really, really, really careful taking care of that home, right, the mobile home isn't going to be worth anything. It depreciates to zero. You can't get a mortgage on it, right? Someone can't afford to buy it from you, all those complications. So whatever we could do to research building actual small homes, right, that might share a septic with the neighbors, right, to reduce the cost, to make it possible to build more and to build more densely that way.
So we've got that on line 9 here, I think, if I'm thinking I'm hearing what you're talking about would be the same as that.
Just put it a lot better way than I did. That's you filled that out much better. But yeah, I think the research is the key to find out what land is out there and who might be willing to do that.
And I think if you are someone who could sell some land, develop some land, to be able to provide you with some resources that you might not know about, how you could do so more affordably, and ultimately, as the owner of that land, right, walk away having made more of a profit, if that's what you're trying to do, and create something for the village that's sustainable, that attracts people, that makes people want to stay here, right, want to live here.
Okay. I don't have anything that's not already on this list. My thoughts have been along the lines of the probably folds into building it, not necessarily. I wouldn't thought about the tax base. I was thinking more about job opportunities to have integrated businesses in town and promote that. I also have been thinking about, with the changing of the guard, if you will, with the zoning administrator, it'd be a great time for us to review and at least present what our concept of that position might be that would be beneficial to us as a commission. And the housing one is such a sticky widget, but we are looking to balance housing here along with what's going on in Chittenden County, and make it so that it's sustainable both for new property owners and existing property owners and renters, for that matter. There's a lot of rental property in Bristol that could be positively or negatively affected. And it gets a bad rap sometimes, but it serves a niche of the market. So that needs to be kept in mind as well. So I guess,
Kevin, when you talk about the small businesses and integrated businesses, does that speak to what regional planning had identified about that was in the attachment about
Yeah.
what they might need to track more and that sort of stuff, or?
Is this, so regional planning talked about it with our plan review. It was in the building neighborhoods booklet as well, the importance of having, you know, work-living relationships. So, I mean, that's all part of that, I think. And what that looks like, you know, I don't know. We've got, you know, business practice getting built out now. But I don't know how, for instance, home businesses, small businesses in the neighborhoods. I think we tend to be over leery about somebody working out of their house. And I think that kind of is not in sync with this whole work-live arrangement, so.
And once you start talking home business versus home office and the implications of that, yeah, everybody gets
You get.
a little more on edge about it.
But look at something like, oh my gosh, the chocolate place. I'm losing my mind. I can't think. The chocolate place there where the health food store used to be. Oh my gosh, I can't.
Farmhouse.
Farmhouse, where they started in their home and now, you know, it's a thriving, you know, business employing folks. And so, I mean, you know, I think starting businesses at home, if it can lead to something like that, is definitely, you know, a good thing.
That's definitely a zoning change, because right now you don't
Yep.
allow.
Yep.
So I guess we've got I think we've narrowed, I don't know how much we've changed our list. But I think we've refined it, honed it, and made it much clearer, some of the things we're thinking about. I don't know, I had thought that we would do some rank voting, if you will, on these issues to kind of flush something up. But given the time, I'm not so sure that maybe we take this list and walk away with it and do that at the next meeting. I mean, we don't have.
And it's also, in all honesty, that's not that unmanageable of a list.
No, because there's quite a bit of it that's centered around housing and implications of that, be it affordability or impacts of housing and rentals, and a couple of those topics came up a few times or are intermingled.
So maybe the thing to do is take and chew on and see what can be grouped together.
Combined, tackled at once, maybe.
And who do we want to have somebody do that for us and present it, or do we want to take and go off and kind of everybody look at it and give their slant? Anybody?
Does anybody want to consolidate it and clean it up?
I think, I mean, my gist on this would be, you do have a ton of overlap. But I want to make sure, but just listening to it, there was just enough uniqueness on some people's perspectives that I really think it would behoove you to each do it on your own, so you don't lose that piece. That's part of the planning, is that creativity piece.
Okay.
That'd be my only 2 cents on that.
I think we were heading that way anyway.
So
Yeah.
Didn't see hands in the air, so. Let's, I will email this out in the next day or so to everybody. And then we all can noodle on it and craft it into what we want to group it or prioritize, how we want to do it. And I think, you know, Rob's exactly right. There's a lot of overlapping stuff. And sometimes, as I was writing down this, I may not have kept everybody's comments because I was thinking it's already in another spot. And to embellish on it would certainly make sense. So is that okay with everybody?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Good work, thanks. So the next thing is administrative matters. We've got the minutes from our February meeting that
Want
needs
to
to
stop
be.
share?
Oh, yeah, okay, I can do that. Let me just make sure I save that. Thank you.
Mhm.
There. So we have minutes from last meeting, we always approve them because it's tradition, but we're actually acknowledging that they're accurate, so. Is there any errors or omissions with them? Okay, anybody opposed to approving them? Okay, takes care of that. Zoning administrator report.
Things are just starting to pick up. The winter slowed down, interest rates going up have also slowed things down. As I've stated before, my tenure as ZA is coming to a close. We have an interview hopefully this week with the potential candidate and try to get them on board as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. I already noted item C was gonna be dropped. The next item is April will be our organizational meeting. So at that point in time, there's a couple things that will provide opportunities for us. We will be electing officers for the next year. This has been my third year as chairperson. And our policies and procedures say that you cannot hold that position or vice chair for more than 3 years in a row. So that presents a great career move for somebody. The other thing is at the organizational meeting is the time of year that you can review and adjust the policies and procedures. So those two documents went out with this agenda and I'll send them out for next agenda. So there's that. Is there any, I think that's all there is there unless anybody has any comments. So at this point, we'll take public comment if there's any. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Although,
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We're done. That's a wrap. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Good night, all.
You know.
thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good one.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye.